Some people walk into my courtroom thinking they're smarter than the room they're standing in, thinking the right smile, the right outfit, or the right last name on a birth certificate is going to change what I'm about to do. Those people I expect. What I did not expect was a 22-year-old walking through my doors with his arms crossed and a little grin at the corner of his mouth, like he'd shown up to the wrong party and was just waiting for a good moment to leave. His name was Gabriel Stein, son of a well-known local businessman, a law program he never finished, and the very specific look of someone who has never once felt the ground give way beneath his feet. That look disappeared the day I read the victim's name out loud. The file described the following: Gabriel Stein, 22 years old, charged with misappropriation of funds, forgery of signature, and aggravated fraud. But let me tell you what was underneath those technical terms. Doris Mello was 71 years old, a widow, 3 children raised on her own after her husband died in a workplace accident when she was 39. She spent 30 years running a small stationery shop, same neighborhood, same address, same smile for the same customers. When she retired, she had saved $47,000. It wasn't a fortune, it was everything. Gabriel Stein was the grandson of a friend of hers. He showed up at Doris's home with an investment proposal. He explained everything with smooth, polished language. He had her sign documents. He disappeared with the money in 6 weeks. When Doris realized what had happened, she went to the bank. The teller confirmed it. Account empty. She sat down on the bench outside the branch and stayed there for 2 hours until her daughter arrived because she couldn't stand up. That's not in the case file. Her daughter told me that in her testimony, with a steady voice and her eyes looking straight at me. Gabriel walked into the courtroom wearing dress pants and expensive sneakers, no tie. His attorney, a man who clearly would have preferred to be somewhere else, carried the briefcase with the expression of someone hired for a job that keeps getting worse. Gabriel's family occupied 2 rows in the back, father in a suit, mother with a handkerchief folded in her purse, all of them carrying the posture of people who expect this to be brief and manageable. Doris Mello was in the front row, right side, a blue button-up blouse, hair pulled back and her hands folded in her lap with the kind of calm that only exists in people who have already cried everything they had left to cry. Gabriel did not look at her once. When the case was called and the charges were read, I asked Gabriel whether he understood the seriousness of what he was facing. He said he did. I asked if he had anything to say before we proceeded. He said, with that grin still sitting at the corner of his mouth, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Ms. Doris signed everything voluntarily." His attorney closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. I looked at Gabriel for a long moment. Then I asked, "Voluntarily? You are telling this court that a 71-year-old woman voluntarily signed a contract printed in 6-point font on carbon paper at her kitchen table with you sitting beside her after 40 minutes of explanation about projected returns?" He opened his mouth. "Voluntarily," I said again before he could speak, as in she had every piece of information she needed to make a free and informed decision. The smile disappeared. I have a habit of reading testimony aloud when I believe someone in the room has not read it carefully enough. I opened the statement from Carol, Doris's daughter. "My mother worked 30 years in that shop. She opened at 7:30 in the morning and closed at 7 in the evening. When I was a child, I did my homework behind the counter because she had no one to leave me with. The money he took was her money, but it was also her time. It was the homework I did behind that counter. It was the lunches she skipped so she could close the register in the black. No document with a signature on it changes that." I paused. I looked at Gabriel. He was staring at the table. "Look up," I said. He looked up. "You just heard what your misunderstanding cost. Now I'm going to tell you what this court is going to do with that information." Gabriel Stein was found guilty on all counts. The sentence had 4 parts, and I intended each one to be understood as deliberate, not procedural. First, full restitution of $47,000 to Doris Mello, with monetary correction within 90 days. Second, 240 hours of community service, not at charity galas, not for photographs on social media, at 3 organizations that serve elderly individuals in financial vulnerability, attendance verified and signed by the directors personally. Third, a 5-year prohibition from acting as legal representative, proxy, or signatory on any financial contract with formal notification to the relevant regulatory bodies. Fourth, a written letter to Doris Mello, reviewed by this court before delivery, describing what he did, not what he believed he was doing, what he did. The attorney argued disproportionality. First offense, no prior record. I said your client has no prior record because no one before this made it to a courtroom. That is not virtue. That is luck. And today the luck ran out. Gabriel's father stood up when the hearing ended. He didn't approach the bench. He stayed where he was. But he looked at me in a way I recognize. The specific mixture of anger and shame of a man who realizes too late that shielding a child from every consequence is not love. It is negligence on a delay. Doris Mello remained seated while the courtroom emptied around her. Her daughter leaned in and said something quietly. Doris nodded slowly. Then she looked toward my bench and made a gesture I never quite know how to describe. She didn't applaud. She didn't thank me. She simply acknowledged that someone had seen what happened to her for exactly what it was. Sometimes that's all justice can give back.